terribly sorry about this, but there's been a news bulletin come in just very recently, and it's to do with the crisis in the Middle East. Now, as you know, things are going to be rather flaring up in the Middle East, and several governments expressed their feelings about this and what they intend to do about this. Now, the English, to start with, are feeling the pinch in relation to recent events in the Middle East and have therefore raised their security level from miffed to peeved. Soon, though, security levels may be raised yet again to irritated or even a bit cross. The English have not been a bit cross since the Blitz in 1940, when tea supplies nearly ran out. Terrorists have been recategorised from tiresome to a bloody nuisance, and the last time the British issued a bloody nuisance warning level was in 1588 when threatened by the Spanish Armada. The Scots have raised their threat level from best off to let's get the bastards. They don't have any other levels. This is the reason that they have been used on the front line in the British Army for the last 300 years. The French government announced yesterday that it has raised its terror alert level from run to hide. The only two higher levels in France are collaborate, surrender. Ooh. This rise was precipitated by a recent fire that destroyed France's white flag factory, effectively paralysing the country's military capabilities. Italy has increased its level, the alert level, from shout loudly and excitedly to elaborate military posturing. Two more levels remain: ineffective combat operations and change sides. The Germans have increased their alert from disdainful arrogance to dress in uniform and sing marching songs. They also have two higher levels: invade a neighbour and lose. Belgians, on the other hand, are all on holiday as usual. The only threat they are worried about is NATO pulling out of Brussels. The Spanish are all excited to see their new submarines ready to deploy. These beautifully designed subs have glass bottoms, so that the new Spanish Navy can get a really good look at the old Spanish Navy. Australia, meanwhile, has raised its security level from no worries to she'll be alright, mate. Two more escalation levels remain. They are crikey, I think we'll need to cancel the Barbie this weekend. And the Barbie is cancelled. So far, no situation has ever warranted the use of the last final escalation level. And now the Swiss. Thank you and good night.
We now have Gwen Tchaikovsky singing I Can't Help Loving That Man of Mine.
chimney smoking.
Scrambler before the interval, and it's Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. Where are they? Colin and John.
Come over here, will you please?
Here, you've been ferreting around in my lunchbox,
I
haven't you?
certainly have. And I found something not altogether connected with sandwiches. I refer, of course, to Blauberger's Encyclopedia of Sexual Knowledge. How do you explain this?
I found that on the heath. You know, I thought I'd better keep it down in my sandwich tin to keep it dry in case somebody wants to find it.
You're hiding it away, aren't you? Because you're ashamed of it.
I just kept it in there for safekeeping.
You shouldn't be ashamed of sex, stud. It's no good hiding your sex away in a sandwich tin. Bring it out in the open.
No, it's a good book, Dad. Some good things in it. Have you read all of it?
Yes. I've been through it up to page 3001.
You read the whole lot of it then, haven't you?
Yes, it's quite good.
I like it, because with that it tells you everything about sex from the word go.
It's wonderfully informative about the sexual mores through the ages, Dad.
And it tells you of human sexual endeavour from the time of Adam and Eve onwards.
It certainly does. All the myths about it as well. Of course, Adam and Eve, when they were in the Garden of Eden, they didn't have anything to do with sex to start with, you know. When they were in paradise, they didn't have anything to do with sex. Of course, they were wandering around naked.
I bet
But they didn't know they were naked.
I bet they did know, you know. I mean, you'd soon find out about it if you got caught up on the brambles.
No, they had no idea. They were remarkably stupid, as well as naked. They didn't know they were naked until up come a serpent, as some authorities have it. Up come a serpent and said, "Here's an apple, lay your teeth into that." Then they laid their teeth into the apple, and the serpent said, "You're nude. You're completely nude."
Hello, nudies. Of course, they dashed off into the brush, and covered themselves with embarrassment, didn't they?
And mulberry leaves as well. They covered themselves all together with this primitive clothing made of leaves, and suddenly, as soon as they became completely covered, they began to get attracted to each other. And then, of course, they tore off all the mulberry leaves, and it all started, the whole business.
Well, I think once you got clothes off, only I can't read what the once you got clothes off and that's what it is, yeah. Once you got clothes on, you're more attractive to other people. Like my Aunt Dolly. She's more attractive when she's got clothes on. So Uncle Bert says anyway.
Well, Aunt Dolly is really at her most attractive when she's completely covered in wool and has a black veil over her face, and ideally she should be in another room altogether.
Here, what's your sort of ideal woman, Pete?
No. Well, above all others, I covet the elfin beauty, the gazelle slim elfin beauty. Very slim, very slender, but all the same, still being endowed with a certain amount of...
Busty substances?
Yes, a kind of Audrey Hepburn with Anita Ekberg overtones. What do you like?
Oh, me, same sort of thing. Actually, I like the sort of woman who throws herself on you and tears your clothes off with rancid sensuality.
Yes, they're quite good, aren't they? I think you're referring to rampant sensuality.
Well, either one will do. Of course, the important thing is that they tear your clothes off.
That's the chief thing. I like a good rampant woman.
I'll tell you a rampant woman, or rancid, or whatever you like. That's Veronica Pilbrow. You remember her?
Do I remember her? Yeah.
She was always throwing herself on that Roger Braintree. Never me.
Well, Roger Braintree at school, he always knew more than anyone else. He was always boasting about things he knew.
Oh, clever drawers, wouldn't he, eh?
Yeah. Do you remember that time he came round behind the wooden buildings and he had with his, what was his name? Kenny Vare with him. And he had come up and he told me, I've discovered the most disgusting word in the world. It's so filthy that no one's allowed to see it except bishops. And nobody knows what it means. It's the worst word in the world.
What was the word?
He wouldn't tell me. I had to give him £1/2 of peppermints before he let it out. And do you know what it was?
No.
Bastard.
What's that mean, Pete?
Well, he wouldn't tell me. I knew it was filthy, but I didn't know how to use it. So he said the only place I could see it was down at the town hall in the enormous dictionary they had there, an enormous one with a whole volume for each letter. So, you know, you only get in to see it with a medical certificate. So I went down there and sneaked in, you know, and very secretively and went up and took down from the shelf this enormous great busty bee and opened it out, and there was the word in all its horror.
What was the definition?
Bastard. It said bastard. Child born out of wedlock.
Oh! What's a wedlock, Pete?
Oh, wedlock, Bud, is a horrible thing. It's a mixture of steam engine and padlock.
Oh.
And some children are born out of them instead of through the normal channels. And it's another one of the filthiest words in the world.
Make your hair drop out if you say it. I like looking up words in the dictionary, you know. I like going round the Valence Library and going to the reference library and getting out the dictionary of unconventional English and looking up the word bloomers.
Yeah, it's quite a good way of spending an afternoon.
Of course, I tell you what, Pete, the whole business of sex is a bit of a letdown, really, when you compare it with the wonderful, romantic tales of novelists who can portray sexual endeavours in such a better form than you or me.
Well, he makes it all so perfect. In the hands of a skilled novelist, sex becomes something which can never be attained in real life. Have you read Neville Shute?
Very little.
How much of Neville Shute have you read?
Nothing.
Yes. Well, Neville Shute is a master of sensuality. He has some wonderful erotic passages, like in a town like Alice, in the hardcover version, page 81. If you go down the library, it falls open at that page. It's a description set in Australia, Dad, and there's this ash blonde girl, Tina.
Tina, don't you get meaner?
Shut up! And she's there, standing on the runway, you see, of this aerodrome, and it's very hot. Australian bush heat. It's very hot indeed. And she's standing there waiting for her ruddy-duddy pilot to come, bronzed Tim Bradley, and it's very hot. The cicadas are rubbing their legs together, making that strange noise, very similar to that nasty noise which is coming from your mouth at this very moment. And it's very hot, and she's covered in dust. The Australian dust is all over her. She's got dust on her knees, dust on her shoulders.
Dust on her bust, Pete.
Yeah, dust on her bust, as you quite rightly point out, Dad. And it's very dusty and it's very hot. Hot and dusty. And suddenly, out of nowhere, the clouds open. And suddenly, there's a tremendous clap of thunder. And suddenly, the mongoose is on her. The tropical storm is soaking through the frail poplin that she is wearing, and her dresses get damper and damper, damper and damper. Her wonderful frail form is outlined against the poplin, and then what does she hear but in the distance, the distant buzzing of approaching plane? She cups her ear to hear, like this.
She cups her perfectly proportioned, up-thrusting ear, Pete.
She cups it, and the plane comes down on the runway and comes to a halt. Out comes the bronzed Aussie. But all the propellers are still turning very fast. There's a tremendous rushing wind, and it blows up against her, and it blows the damp dress right up against her, and reveals for all the world to see her perfectly defined
Busty substances.
busty substances.
What happened after that?